Now, when it comes to Brexit, one of the big things, of course, everyone's been talking about is what is the economic impact going to be? Well, no one really knows for sure, but it's worth just looking at a few potential forecasts. One scenario that's been provided by the Office of Budget Responsibility kind of shows you pretty clearly what they think might well happen. This line here shows you what could potentially happen to GDP, the best measure of economic growth, if we stayed inside the EU. The fact that it's flat, don't read too much into that. They are still expecting growth, but this is just so we can compare these different potential paths. Now, we're around here at the moment, and this is what their computer said, as it were, for a free trade deal. So down by about 4% by the 2030s, and this is their no-deal Brexit forecast. And the key thing here to note here is the big gap isn't between these two things, the WTO Brexit, no-deal Brexit, and the free trade deal. It's actually between both of those and staying inside the EU. And they think, actually, we've already lost about 1.8, 1.5% or so of potential growth from UK GDP. But it's not just GDP. It's also worth, looking at what businesses are thinking, looking at the concerns that they have for their balance sheets. And this survey is from the Bank of England just not long ago, showing you what various businesses said that would be the potential impact of Brexit. You can see there is a certain chunk saying that there's going to be a large negative or a small negative effect, over about kind of 30% or so. But the majority thinking there would be no impact on their balance sheets, and a few who think there could be a small positive or a large positive effect for their businesses. So more balanced perhaps than you might have made out from some of the forecasting that we've seen elsewhere. And uncertainty has been the key thing hanging over these talks as they've gone on. At least some of that might have been dispelled by now. At least there's more certainty. But you can see that uncertainty starting quite high, around 40%, and then going up to around 60%. That's 60% of all businesses saying Brexit is in the top three of their concerns by 2019 and then into 2020 as well. Now, one of the issues that's hung over the Brexit talks, and we've talked about it an awful lot recently, is the UK's reliance on food imports. So this chart's basically going to show you where we get our food from, and it goes all the way back to 1988. You can see those are the exports coming out of the UK going elsewhere around the world. That's domestic production, so anything in the positive territory, around kind of 50-60% comes from domestic sources. And then you've got the EU, the biggest contributor of UK food when it comes to our imports. And then you can see Africa, the Americas, and Asia and others as well. But just note how big the EU's part is in that. And that's not going to change our reliance on Europe as a source for our food and indeed other goods as well. Finally, we've talked so much, haven't we, recently about fishing. The fishing sector has been in some ways one of the key sticking points when it comes to these talks. So it's worth just asking the question, how big is fishing actually when you take the UK economy? And what I've got here, don't try and read all of this small print, but this is basically every sector in the UK economy, from the biggest services sectors down to mining of coal and lignite down there at the bottom. Now, you might have asked yourself, you might have thought that fishing might be somewhere in the middle, somewhere near the top, but actually, have a look at this. It's over there. It is one of the smallest parts of the UK economy, accounting for 0.018% of GDP. But there we are. That was one of the key sticking points in these talks. And Brexit, well, that's some of the impact, but it's going to take quite some time before we know what is actually going to happen.